What's up, core reporters, and welcome back to my channel. Love is Blind stars are a little bit concerned for Raven Ross. They feel as though she may have found herself in another toxic relationship with her new boyfriend. So let me kind of just like back things up to give you guys a little bit of context for this. Raven recently appeared on Shannon Boodram's Lovers and Friends podcast, and so she talked a lot about her new relationship, and there were just a couple of things in like her stories that really kind of like made people raise their eyebrows. And so they are sounding the alarm about the potential of her being with another toxic guy. So if you recall, Raven shot to fame from Love is Blind. She was in oh my God, was it season 3, you guys? Yes, with SK. SK wound up cheating on her, and it was just a mess. She was really publicly humiliated by this guy. And luckily for her, though, everybody rallied around her, right? Like she was not judged. She was not like cut down for what he did. What his behaviors were his own behaviors. And she really was able to rise above it and continue building her Pilates business. So now, like I said, she popped onto Shannon's Lovers and Friends podcast, and she shares the story of how she met her boyfriend. So the story is basically at this time in her life, she was in a really dark place. She was very isolated because she just felt so horribly about what had happened with SK. And so she really like became a shell of herself and just really like enclosed herself and everything. And she had seen a friend of hers post something on Instagram. It was a meme of sorts saying like, oh, I don't want you to like me, love me. I want you to be obsessed with me. And so this guy that she's dating now slides into her DM saying, I'm obsessed with you. How about we go for a date? And so she decides to go for a date with this guy. So to me, that is a bit of a red flag that like some random guy who doesn't know you outside of like seeing you on TV, so is essentially a groupie. He's like, I'm obsessed with you. Let's go on a date. And so I'm really shocked that she accepted it, to be honest with you, because, you know, you don't know people. A lot of people are quite crazy in this world. So to just be so open to somebody who you've never met and he only knows you off of television, you don't know his intentions and whatnot. Yeah, I can see why that sort of rubbed people the wrong way. And I just want to highlight here that at this point, Shan had asked her like what her expectations were of like, you know, love and relationships and whatnot at this point in her life before the boyfriend showed up. And Raven had revealed that she didn't really have any. After what SK did to her, she kind of like lost this kind of like hope that she would find a good person, essentially. So anyway, after this guy DMs her, they start FaceTiming for about 2 weeks, and then she has to go to New York for a job. I believe this is when she teamed up with a studio or a clothing line, an athletic wear, pardon, to do live Pilates classes. So she tells him that she's going to be there. She's got her friends there. She's got her manager and a castmate from Love is Blind as well. And so that guy, who doesn't know her, by the way, but says he's obsessed with her. They have been FaceTiming for about 2 weeks at this point. He books his own plane ticket to go to New York, where Raven is going to be. So she teaches her Pilates class, right? And after it, she says she's too tired to get all dolled up and stuff. So she felt like she didn't look her best when she went downstairs at the hotel to meet with this guy. So that's another thing where it's like, okay, you don't really know this guy except that he's a hardcore fan of yours and that you're giving him your hotel address. These are not the greatest decisions, but I digress. So he pulls up, and so she sees him for the first time in person, and Raven says that she had a really difficult time making eye contact with him because she felt like he was so good looking and she looked horrible at this moment. And their first date was actually a brunch date. This is not like an evening dinner situation, but they really, really were hitting it off. And like the hours kept flying by. And she had dinner with like her crew, which consisted of her manager, her friends, and a castmate from Love is Blind. And she was like, hey, I'm going to be out with these people for dinner. Why don't you come join us? Which, you know, again, is like, oh, girl, like you don't know this man to be bringing him around all these people, but maybe you'll present him as a friend. Who cares? Okay. So they have the dinner with her friends, with her posse and everything. And apparently this went really well. And at the end of the dinner, this man tells Raven, I think I'm falling in love with you. Which to me should have been like another red flag. Like, okay, this is weird. Like this guy literally doesn't know me. He just has this idea in his head, or maybe he's got ulterior motives because, you know, I have an online brand at this point. Like I am known from Netflix and stuff, but none of that is going on in Raven's mind, right? Raven, she tells him that she's straight up in love with him. So again, you guys, this is like their first date in actual real life person. Yes. So, like little things like this were really kind of throwing people off. They said that it felt kind of like love bombing and whatnot, which I totally like understand. It's a lot and it is quite overwhelming. And so when Raven tells him that thinks she's in love with him, he says, I love you right back to her. And it's like, what do you love, you guys? You guys truly do not know each other at this point, right? It's just been a couple of weeks of FaceTiming. Like, you met her in person once, you met like her friends and stuff. But that to me is not enough to be full blown in love with someone. But I digress. Now, at this point, Shannon is asking her a little bit more. So to me, you can kind of see that Shannon is seeing the red flags, but she wants to be gentle with Raven. So she's like, so what was your state of mind at this point? Like, having met him, like what were, your expectations and whatnot? How did you feel about yourself? Like, in what regard do you hold yourself in this moment? And so Raven said that she didn't think that she deserved anything like real, because no one in her family is married. So she never thought it would be like a real thing for her. She says that she's always had low self-esteem. She feels like she's not that smart. She's not that pretty. So she needs to settle for whatever it is that she can get. And so that kind of shows in the way that this relationship is progressing, in like a very unhealthy way. It seems like two incomplete people are looking to the other person to provide everything that they should be providing to themselves, and that is a little bit scary because those can become those all-consuming relationships that become so volatile and so toxic. So at this point, Raven shares how she's been banging this man, and like the first time they ever did the do, she cried, like while it was happening. And the reason being that this guy told her that her lack of maturity and confidence was bothersome to him, and they turned him off from her. Like, he found those to be huge turnoffs in her. And so after telling her these things, like telling her like, you're immature, you're not confident, and I'm losing my attraction to you, he starts banging her. Like, they start having sex. And then that's why she cried. And so she framed it like it was this beautiful, like spiritual experience. But to me, it's kind of like, girl, are you okay? Because that doesn't sound great. It sounded like that man really hurt your feelings and rushed to have sex afterwards. And that's why you're crying, not because it's this beautiful, like soulmate sort of a vibe, like the stuff she's saying about the low self-esteem, not thinking she deserves great things. Like, I'm thinking about that a lot, like as she's telling the story and framing it like it's the most beautiful thing ever. I think Shan mentioned like having tearful, like, intimacy with her husband, like the first time they did it, but it was in a completely different context. In fact, she didn't even provide real details, but I imagine that it was a lot more positive rather than someone just, pointing out the horrible things about you and telling you that they're turned off by you and some attributes of yours. And, at this point, Raven starts tearing up, you guys. She goes, I feel like I really found like a great person because I just keep hurting him and just doing these things that hurt him so much. And he's still here and he's still trying. And so at this point, you're like, okay, well, what's Raven doing to hurt this man? Like, okay, I can imagine that she might be traumatized still from her situation with SK. She's not that far removed from it. But so maybe like there's jealousy there, or like, just I don't know, like being annoying. So she says it a couple of times that like she is hurting this man and he is still standing by her. And so Shannon, I'm so happy she asked this. She's like, so what are you doing to hurt him? What do you mean when you say that you keep hurting this man? Well, Raven goes, for example, my boyfriend doesn't want me to capitalize off of my time on Love is Blind. He doesn't want me to be referring to it or anything like that. So sometimes when I mention it, playfully in videos or just like, on social media and stuff, it really upsets him and it really hurts him. And, I'm trying not to do that. And he's saying, why do you keep focusing on your past? Like, this is the present. Like, aren't you happy now? Why do you keep going back there? And I'm like, well, that is so weird because Raven is known from Love is Blind. So when she like references it and whatnot, I think it's a great idea marketing wise to keep her face out there, to keep growing her business and whatnot. And I don't know what it has to do with this guy. I think it's very weird, the idea that you cannot mention like your old job, right? Or your claim to fame just because you're in a new relationship. Like, absolutely not. Like, so weird. And the fact that this guy has her convinced that talking about the show in any way, shape, or form, not even SK, because Raven does not mention SK. She mentions the show in general. So the fact that mentioning these pods or whatever in general is enough to seriously upset this man, it's weird. It's manipulative. And I hate to use this overused word, but it's giving narcissistic. Like, it's just so creepy. I'm sorry. And so the guy, when he talks about Raven being immature, and if you listen to the interview with Shan, Raven calls herself immature so many times. And I think that this man has really drilled it in her head that this is what she is. And I don't understand why, to be honest. I think she's a very graceful, wonderful person. She handled the SK situation with so much dignity and respect for herself and whatnot, and respect for him that he didn't even deserve. So I don't know where this immature stuff is coming from. But yeah, like he has her convinced that she's immature. She calls herself that so many times, saying that like she needs to grow for this guy and stuff. And it's just so weird. And, not only that, but her boyfriend has told her that referencing Love is Blind is just so immature. And it's one of those immature things she does that like that is becoming harder and harder to overlook. And it's like, girl, you what? Like, it's so crazy. I hope that she has someone in her corner to help her realize that like this is not the move. She on the show was very famous for saying that she wanted someone who would like, help pay the bills for her house and whatnot, like just, be a provider. And a lot of people were dogging her for it, which was so wild to me because it's what she wants. We all have the right. If you want to be Miss 50-50, cook, clean, birth those kids, and still pay 50% of the whatever, go ahead and do that. But if Raven doesn't want to do that, then she doesn't want to do it. I don't think it necessarily makes her a gold digger. It just makes her someone who wants a provider, right? And so that guy, like, he was talking about that, for example. He's like, oh, like you were such a gold digger on that show and stuff. And I don't know. It just gave me a really, really bad, like, sort of like taste because you saw her as a gold digger on the show and as so immature and stuff. Yet you slid into her DMs talking about, I'm obsessed with you. Let's go on a date. You flew immediately to New York talking about you're in love with her on the first day. It's all not adding up. It's all looking really weird. And if anyone looks immature, it's him. And not, sorry, y'all, but not only does he look like he's immature, but he is coming across as full blown unhinged, like unhinged, manipulative, toxic, you name it. That is what he's sounding like. So Raven, they did post a clip of a TikTok she did where it was like smash or pass for people. So it's like celebrities and whatnot. And I think even Cole from her season of Love is Blind pops up there. And it was just really playful and innocent and just good fun. And so that really pissed off her boyfriend. That was an idea that she put out there, like an example, sorry, of the ways in which her immaturity turns him off and pisses him off and whatnot. And she says that like that guy took it so hard. It was like a huge thing for him. And I'm like, girl, this man has no emotional regulation. Like he sounds like a whiny little bi, it's a mess. Honestly, I'm going to say, I don't like the sound of this. And so another thing that I found quite interesting was that this guy tells her all the time whenever a girl flirts with him or slides in his DMs or whatever. And, I don't know that that's healthy to do that all the time because I'll be honest, that happens a lot to a lot of people. Okay. Like I find in my situation, I don't bring that stuff up in my relationships because it's like, what's the point? People flirt with you, whatever, who cares? The only thing that's important is that you don't like engage in that stuff or cross the line or anything like that. And you just keep it moving, right? Like if someone's with you, it's because they know that you're attractive. So there's no need to like constantly be seeking validation in that way by trying to make them jealous or whatnot, or bring these things up, because to me, it adds nothing healthy or positive to the relationship. So I do find it weird that this guy has made it his mission to tell her every single time that someone a girl says something nice to him. Like I don't love it, to be honest with you. Just to me, I would be turned off by a guy who did that, to be honest with you. It's like, I know you're good looking. That's a big reason we're together, damn it. So yeah, Raven says at this point that dating someone who's so attractive is new to her. And I was like, girl, is that shade? Is that shade? But listen, I get it. Sometimes, if you're used to doing a little bit of charity work and you find like a full-blown dime, and I'm not saying anything about SK's looks, okay? I don't see him one way or the other. Like his insides are very ugly to me, but whatever, that's her opinion. But yeah, it is true. Like if you date like guys who are like mid or whatever, and then you suddenly get with a hunk, it is different. You're like, whoa, wait a minute now. So another update that she did provide on a more positive note is that she is learning at this point to love herself in her relationship, and that her relationship is supposedly helping with that. I hope it's the case, But from what I'm hearing, based on her own words about this relationship, it seems like that guy is at least a slightly an unhealthy partner. I'm not liking some of these things he's saying and doing to her, making her feel like she's this immature person that needs to earn this, that, or the other, leave Love is Blind behind, like don't associate herself with it at all. It's very weird. I don't know. Maybe he has this fear that other men who are fans of Love is Blind might do what he did, right? Like slide in the DMs and whatnot. So he just wants to make it like as forgotten as possible. But I'm not loving it, to be honest. And I hope that she starts kind of thinking through some of these things a little bit more after reading the comment section, which, by the way, I do want to bring you to. Let me just prepare that. I'm sorry, because, I was supposed to film this video yesterday, but I just couldn't do it. I had to like rush out. So I had the comment section loaded, but let me do that now. So here's the thing. I want to show you the comment section live in real time, just because I don't want you guys to think that I cherry picked negative comments. You will see for yourself that the majority, la plupart des gens, the majority of these comments, the majority of people are saying that they don't think that this is a healthy relationship. They think that something's off, and they think that this guy might be, at least slightly like toxic, at least slightly narcissistic, or what have you. Okay. So there was something that I did also want to share with you that like also raised the last alarm bell for me. Yeah. So the last thing that really raised the alarm bells for me was how at the end of the episode, you have Shan, and this is a still from it. She is, panned to us, the audience, and she talks about how normally at the end of these podcast interviews, she has a psychologist or a relationship expert, whatever, examine the interview to point out certain aspects of the relationship that are positive, negative, or can be improved. And unfortunately, Raven's team shut it down. They said, no, we are not going to air this segment, or we're not going to film this segment, or whatever. We don't want that part of it. To me, I think that says something. It tells me that she knows something is off, and she doesn't want it to be mentioned too much. I think like after the SK thing, she's a little bit still like reeling over like the public humiliation and just like being played publicly and whatnot. And she doesn't want a repeat of that. And so that's why she and her team decided to cut that part of the podcast, right? Where a psychologist would analyze all of the massive glaring red flags in this relationship. Now, anyway, here you guys go. I am about to pull up the comment section here so that we can examine what people are saying together, right? Boom, 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 boom. Voila. And if I do this so that the comments can be bigger, and then I'm going to do this here. Now they're going to be even bigger. So here are all the comments that you load the page. This is what you're going to see. Raven is really self-critical, and her partner is on a high pedestal. I hope he's good to her even after she gets to a place where she feels secure and confident in her maturity. Another one. I'm a bit concerned for her. She has so much confidence work to do, so she's going to continue picking the wrong guy until she knows she's worthy. May she learn easily. And so Shan is a great interviewer. It led to Raven having the same qualities and whatnot. Well, blah, blah, blah. Nikki says, although it's not my relationship, I am so uncomfortable with how Raven feels about herself. Like, how can you take all that insecurity into a new relationship and expect a positive outcome? There were so many red flags in this interview. I can appreciate Shannon trying to point those out in the most professional way and not make her feel even more secure. I pray she finds happiness, right? Her description of this relationship is scary. It sounds toxic with red flags hanging everywhere. I wish her well. I feel nervous for her, but she's on her path and will grow regardless, like we all do, through what we experience. I really like this comment, by the way. So Posh, if you're watching this video. I'm not sure how I feel about this. Does she actually think she's immature, naive, or did he say that she is, and those are her words that she's repeating? See, that's the exact same thoughts that I had. I do genuinely think that that guy has put that in her head. I've never heard her describe herself this way before this relationship. Someone else says, my psychology-informed thoughts She is recreating what she experienced in Love is Blind. I've seen a summary of her story on the show, and it's still a red flag when someone you've spoken to intimately and I'm sure vulnerably via FaceTime for 2 weeks straight invites himself to a city he's never been to. He meets your whole tribe. They also overshare around a table on New Year's Eve. From watching, this is a good example of how your environment affects or conditions your behavior and gives you blind spots. So it's a cycle of toxic relationships. I don't know for sure, but based off what Raven has shared, it looks like her new partner can read her insecurities and play on them. We're seeing things like textbook love bombing and whatnot. Like, it's just not looking good. Janelle here says she's a therapist. Also, as a therapist, there's no informed consent to have a therapist analyze and therapize someone based on a conversation they were having in a safe space. Okay. So they're saying that the segment that Shannon wanted to add to her show was not very ethical anyway. So Envy Love Bug, he sounds insecure and controlling. So there you go, you guys. As you go, like, you'll see that the majority of this stuff, it sounds like people are peeping game on this man and not really feeling him for Raven. You know, at the end of the day, we all love and adore Raven so much. So this is not a knock on her. I could totally understand how she could end up in another toxic situation just based off of what happened to her with SK. But I think that most people do love and support her and just want to see her happy and are saying these things out of genuine concern for her, because it seemed like not only did she have issues in like the relationship phase, but it seemed like her family is not like a very strong, close-knit family, to be honest with you. Because I remember when all of this was happening, she was spending holidays alone. And I'm like, girl, why are you spending holidays alone? Where's your family at? Like, your parents, you don't have siblings, like cousins, uncles, aunts. Like, she like was posting about spending Thanksgiving alone. And I could have sworn her family was all in Dallas with her. And then we saw her friends. It turned out that they were fake friends. They like one of them, she created a TikTok specifically to laugh or make fun of the SK situation and whatnot. It seems like she just does not have a good community in general. Which makes her even more susceptible to toxic relationships like this, which makes me really, really sad and really, really worried for her. But at the end of the day, it's like that comment that I really loved said. Sometimes you just need to experience certain things in your life that are necessary for your growth. And this might be one of them for Raven. I hope that it's safe, a safe part of her growth, nothing too crazy like this SK thing, but we'll see how it all ultimately ends up playing out. Guys, what did you think about Raven's relationship based off this podcast episode? Let me know what you think, okay? In the comment section down below. And as usual, we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.